All right, first item on our agenda is approval of the minutes from the first quarter 2017 meeting. Is that really the first quarter, not the second quarter?
Yeah, that's first.
Okay, first quarter was
right.
All right, so the minutes, I believe, they sent out with the packet, so anybody would like to make a motion to approve those minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes of the first quarter.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. So, Freddie, you were suggesting that we maybe rearrange the agenda?
Yes, I mean, just to facilitate having more people present to hear this, story, kind of a case study, that I think, might be very eye-opening for you all to consider possibilities and also a new technique in fund line configuration and how plan revenue is generated.
Is everybody here that's going to be here? I think Renetta's still coming.
Julie said she was coming.
Julie's not ready. And then John's leaving early, but we'll still have a forum.
John's leaving early,
Yeah.
Vince is leaving early, Renetta will be leaving early. Do it in the middle. How long are they going to do it?
Well, we're going to go through the target date fund analysis again. That's in ICMA. There's some data covered. So all of numbers. Oh, consent watch, that's nothing. We can do that right now. Just the consent watch items, again, funds that are not in compliance as of the second quarter. Like the policy criteria. There's just one ICMA Advantage inflation-focused fund, which we tag as a watch list fund for next quarter.
Okay, so maybe we should go through that one. This is the next item on our agenda.
The capital markets overview and the fund reviews?
No, item number 2, consent one, please.
Yeah, well, there's really nothing to go over, just to acknowledge that fund is on consent watch to save the committee members the exercise of voting and making a motion, put it on watch.
What does the net mean? Oh, there, no, okay.
Yeah.
No fund, no sign.
Yep.
Okay, so is there a motion on the consent watch list? Or we don't even make a motion?
Yeah.
This has to be approved by one action. Italics there.
Oh. Separate action.
Do we need an action to approve the consent watch list? Or you're saying we don't?
Well, it's been past practice that you don't know. I think that's the point of establishing the consent.
Yeah, I don't remember this note being here before.
Yeah, we need.
Neither.
So we can all- Yeah.
Consent agenda. It's not like a public, it's not a public meeting.
No.
Is this a public meeting?
We don't have to. No, it's not. No, it's not at all.
We're not subject to public records act type stuff, right?
No, and the actual audio recording is not posted on the internet as well. So it's not a public meeting.
So I'm gonna remove that wording.
Well, so this is the only item we ever have on this sort of consent.
Not used to seeing this on
And
there.
so the past
Gary
practice
was
has
wondering,
been,
do you
you
want
just
to
record it
take
and
it over?
then
You
it
don't need to if
just
it's not-
automatically is
It's not
okay
subject to
because
public
of
meeting.
previous agreement that that is the way they're
Right.
operating.
Because we just
Yeah.
provide internally an audio
Okay.
recording, so they
All
don't
right,
need to
then.
take a
Let's
motion.
move on to item number 3.
Yeah, that's
Second
what I
quarter
thought.
accountability.
Okay.
Want to keep that?
And then, Jennifer, please, go to Massachusetts. Yeah, we'll start on page 6, capital markets overview, and I'll give a summarized highlight of it. Markets globally continues for the second quarter, continued to gain in second quarter 2017, led by markets. It appears that we are in the midst of the most synchronous global economic upturn since 2009. Our bullish global equity outlook assumes earnings estimates will continue to move higher as the global economic recovery persists, and the valuations can expand further as market participants become more comfortable with the self-sustainability of this recovery. The core U.S. equities posted strong performance. Healthcare was up 7%, energy was down 6.4%, and telecom was down 7.1%. Those are the laggards, mainly due to low oil prices and delayed tax reform weighed on returns for those respective sectors. But the U.S. had solid performance, with the S&P up 3.1% for the quarter. The largest returns were abroad. Europe was up 7.7%. Emerging markets were up 6.4%. China was up 10.7%. The one-year period ended June 30th. Global equities rallied with double-digit returns exceeding 20% in most regions. The Dow Jones was up 4% for the quarter. NASDAQ was up 4.2%. S&P was up 3.1%. 9 of the 11 sectors of the S&P were positive. As I mentioned, healthcare was up 7.1%, industrials were up 4.7%, and financials were up 4.3%. Laggards, as mentioned, energy was down 6.4%, telecom was down 7%. Bond market was slightly positive. The Bloomberg Barclays U.S. aggregated index was up 1.4%. Morgan Stanley expects U.S. real GDP to be 2.2% in 2017. They forecast global GDP to be 3.6%. Commodities were negative, down 3.2% for the quarter. As far as the U.S. economy, unemployment for May was 4.3%, down from 4.7% in February. Employment accelerated in most mining and performing arts, while it decelerated most in pipeline, transportation, and traditional broadcasting. The number of unemployed was down to 6.9 million versus 7.5 million last quarter. According to the most recent estimate from Bureau of Economic Analysis, corporate profits decreased 2.26% quarter over quarter, but are still up 3.34% year over year. Inflation decreased. One-year consumer price index was 2.7% in February and 1.9% in May. Morgan Stanley economists forecast 2.1% annual inflation rate for this year. New private sector housing starts in February was at an annual rate of 1,092,000, 2.4% below the housing starts this time last year. Retail and food services sales increased at 3.8% year over year in May, a 90 basis point decline since last quarter. Consumer confidence steady in the second quarter of 2017 with consumer confidence reading of 118.9 after reaching its highest level it had been since the year 2000 in March. Purchasing Managers Index, a manufacturing sector index, increased to a reading of 57.8, 60 basis point uptick from March's reading of 57.2%. An index over 50 indicates an expanding sector. PMI is registered above 50 for 15 out of the last 16 months. The U.S. equity markets on page 8. You see the table down below. The quarter and 12-month returns. Looking at over 12 months, you got the S&P up almost 18%, Dow Jones 22%, Russell mid caps up 24.6. Small caps up 24.6, mid caps up 60.5%, and then up in the body of the page, you see how for the quarter, large cap growth was up 4.7%, where large cap value was up 1.3%. Mid cap growth was up 4.2%, where mid cap value was up 1.4%, and the small cap growth was up 4.4%. Small cap value was up 70 basis points over the quarter. Growth as a style outperformed value. Page 9, the global markets. You see down below, ETH index up 6.4% for the quarter. Europe up 7.7%, Japan up 5.2%, S&P up 3.1%. Emerging markets up 6.4%, 24% last 12 months.
I have a question for you. On a long-term basis, doesn't growth always outperform values?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've done some analysis recently, and if you look back, and I have something I can bring in, but it's pretty close to even.
So you have a 7-year number here, and
Yeah.
it's 1.3% different.
You talking about IFA?
On EVA.
Oh,
Even on the S&P, it's 0.7%. Well,
yeah.
you don't have that on that table.
Yeah. Now, is your question related specifically to international or just
Just
in general?
In general, the idea of category is, right, it's, you're taking more risk for more growth.
Yes, and more volatility there in the risk.
But on average, typically, the average return is higher. You see how credit deviation is what you get.
I'd have to verify that. But what I can tell you for sure is that blend, is always in the middle.
And the foreign stocks really are making a comeback this year, right, after being pretty flat last year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You've got, monetary banking policy around the world, initiating, executing a lot of the same tools that our Fed did, bond purchasing and lowering rates and putting banks through stress tests like we did, and it's fine. It was slow in coming, but it's finally starting to bear some fruit, essentially. On page 10, for the U.S. bond market, interest rates decreased during the second quarter. Yield on the 10-year Treasury note declined to quarter end 2.3% from 2.38% at the end of Q1. You see down below that the table, U.S. aggregate was up 1.4%, high yield was up 2.2%, government bonds were up 1.2%, mortgage-backed securities were up 90 basis points. Please go to page 19.
High yield yielded almost 13% last year.
Oh yeah, because
It's all junk bonds.
yeah, and so high yield, and you look back at 08, is that they can have characteristics of equity-like risk and return, and so with a higher coupons and tight credit spreads and positive credit trends, it's not surprising high yield is going as well as it has.
How does the U.S. average negative for 12 months? How do you have negative yield on bonds?
Well, because rates have been volatile, but generally the rates have ticked up a little bit, and a government bond is such a low coupon, even though the credit quality is high. In a rising rate environment, they're going to be defenseless to interest rate risks, or a bet on the future that rates are going to be higher.
Not such a safe investment, though.
Pardon me?
Not such a safe investment.
Absolutely. Well,
When they put bonds in the portfolio, they think, well, I'll make a smaller yield, but I at least won't go down.
That's right. And that, what we just, you talk about high yield did so well, but the flip side is very volatile, and that's why across these record keepers, it's always subject to change over the conversation or ideas, but what we try to do is, employ a core plus bond strategy that is going to buy, benchmark against the Barclays aggregate index that's made up of, government bonds and high-grade corporate bonds, but then also optimistically buy some high yield, buy some mortgage-backed securities, buy foreign debt, to, try to outperform the index and give, participants an easy, diversified go-to option, for the bond allocation.
It always seems like with bonds, when people used to buy bonds, you used to buy the coupon, and you would hold it for the term of the bond, and then when bond funds came into existence, bonds were no longer guaranteed to make money, albeit at a very low interest rate. And then when bond funds came in, since they trade by the minute,
Yeah.
you can lose a lot of money in a day. Whereas if you bought a coupon, you will get paid eventually unless they go bankrupt, of course.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, why the concept of, well, bonds never lose money, because if you buy the coupon, you won't. But if you buy a bond fund, which is a lot different than buying a coupon.
Yeah.
So I don't think the industry has educated people or kept people up to speed on a bond fund versus buying a bond coupon.
You're right. If you buy a bond, and as long as the issuer doesn't go out of business or fail on their promise to pay, the ultimate maturity, you're going to get your principal plus the accrued interest.
Yeah.
And that's that's an income strategy. But in a bond fund, it's executed on more of a total return basis, where they're trying to collect that interest income, but also you can buy a bond at 99 cents on the dollar and sell it at 102, and you have some capital appreciation as well, and the interest rates the curve. We're in a traditional yield curve. You're going to get more yields if you go out farther out of maturity, and the curve shifts because of interest rate dynamics, where a bond manager might sell some of the bonds in the portfolio on the short end and maybe roll up and capture higher yield opportunistically on the mid.
But they're traded like stocks, essentially. I mean, bonds in bond funds are traded essentially like stocks to capture different yields, and
Absolutely.
versus just buying a U.S. bond like you did throughout until probably 1960 or 70, where you bought a government bond and got your 3%, and you went to the bank and took the thing in and
Yeah.
got your money back.
Yeah. Every once in a while, we'll get some people, usually elderly people, that call and say, under my mattress, I just found some old, government bonds. Can I bring them in? Can you deposit them? Can I, whatever. So there are some people that actually hold certificates from bonds, but less and less. Any other comments before we look at performance? Page 19. Two funds are on the watch list. Energy Manager Skyline, Small Blend, and American Century Real Estate, which I do have a fund search to show you. Go to page 21, please. Here's an overview of the asset classes we have represented. And on page 22. Now, in this box on page 22, on the left side, Hutchinson Wiley is being replaced with Victory Sycamore. The Nuveen, Invesco Small Cap Value is replaced with Nuveen Small Cap Value, and in Large Growth, the Mass Mutual Select Ops has been replaced with Clearbridge Large Cap Growth. Page 25. There is the fund balances, allowing $77 million in the Hartford, or the general account, Mass Mutual. Down below, you see Invesco has zero, because it was replaced with Nuveen. Page 26, for $159,113,000. Page 28. So here is the first quarter that we are reviewing funds with the new criteria that includes 9 data points. That was 2. That was the top 50 percentile for 3 and 5 year in the Morningstar category. And if you turn to page, now if you notice on page 28, 2 of those criteria down below are 3-year outperformance, 3 and 5 year outperformance to the index itself. Everybody see that? And then if you turn to page 29, when we review the index funds, because we do have some index funds, those last 2 criteria are removed. So instead of having 9, we have 7, because they would inherently fail those 2 criteria inherently if you take out the expenses. So it's appropriate that you eliminate those 2 criteria when evaluating the index funds. And if you go to page 34, here's here's what it looks like. So there's our Hartford total return, getting a A++, where it passes on all 9 criteria with a score of 100. Pimco real return, 67. Oakmark equity and income, 67. And then there's all our target, the T. Rowe Price target date funds. You know, we know they're equity heavy, right? So it's no surprise that they're going to shine in this great equity market. On page 35, there is Hartford dividend growth, 89, Oppenheimer Main Street, 56. Passing score is 50, score of 50. So essentially, you needed to pass on 5 of the 9 criteria. Mass Mutual Select Ops, 22. That validates the decision last quarter to replace it with Clearbridge Large Cap Growth. And Hotchkiss and Wiley, again, 22 is being replaced with Victory Small Cap Value. Page 36, again, some good performers. Hartford Mid Cap 100. There's the new Nuveen Small Cap that just went in plan, 100 score. AMG Manager Skyline is on watch. Now here's an interesting situation where you look at last quarter, and it was on watch by virtue of the 3- and 5-year ranking to the peers. And so last quarter for 3 years, it was ranked 61st on the 3-year. It did improve to 57, and on the 5-year, which was never an issue, it was ranked 13th and improved to 3rd. So, you know, if we only had those 2 criteria, you know, maybe that would be a discussion to keep it on watch, trending with good returns. But then you look at all these other criteria that give a more comprehensive look, and then you get to 67, which is a passing score in this new monitoring criteria. So, by that fact, I believe this fund should be taken off of watch.
How many quarters was on watch for?
I can tell you exactly. Yeah. Let's tell you what. Go to 19, it'll show. Yeah, just last quarter. So it was only put on watch last quarter.
Do we have any rules about how long something has to stay on watch for?
Yeah, it's been the typical to, you know, give it 2 quarters. And, you know, if it continues to just be so bad, then, you know, it would do a fund search to replace it. But if it also is trending positive, and you think, you know, deserves more time to see this trend play out and maybe work itself off watch, then that's subject to discussion, subjective, you know, discussion. And I had a similar situation where I had another fund, JP Morgan Large Cap Growth Fund, and after 2 quarters, you know, we're still on watch, and the committee replaced it with the Clearbridge Large Cap Growth that you have. And 2 quarters later, you know, JP Morgan was in the 10th percentile. So sometimes, you know, 2 quarters doesn't make a trend. We have a great fund manager at JP Morgan, stuck to their process, you know, believed in what they were doing, and 2 quarters later, you know, it looks great. So as I evolve, I tend to be more in favor of being a little more patient with funds, and you know, where 2 quarters or something doesn't, you know, make a trend. That's been what we've done in the past, Gary.
With all that being said, I think I'd be fine just leaving it on watch for the quarter. So I think what you said was on the old criteria, which is 3- and 5-year, it would still be on watch, right? It would be one or
Yes, yeah.
No.
Well,
Under the old criteria, we would have to agree to put it on watch.
It was already on watch.
Under the old criteria, we would have to agree to put it on watch because of it was only the 3-year period where it was failed, so we would have to put it on watch. Then we would have to remove it from watch. We would have to vote to take it off from watch. The only criteria we have is under the old criteria, and 3 and 5 both were under 50, that it automatically placed on the consent.
so, but again, Gary, we can certainly keep it on watch, but if we were using, just to make a point, if we were using old criteria, yes, it's still below 50 from the 3-year, but under the new criteria, using 9 data points, it doesn't pass in score, so, you have to consider that.
So nothing prevents us from keeping it on watch, we don't have to vote to do that.
Yep.
We would only have to vote to take it off.
Correct.
Okay, is there anybody that would like to make a motion to take it off the watch list?
Keep it on watch, okay.
How do you understand the tiers and category numbers? Why is there 5 different?
Well, so you've got, you want to be above the 50th percentile in the peer group, when you say peer group fund category for 1, 3, and 5 year.
I'm just looking at the counts.
At the what?
The counts and under each
Oh.
fund there's counts. Tier and category is 700.
Oh, that's how many funds are in the universe, in the category.
Why is there more than one number? Why is it 5?
Oh.
Is it because of the length of the fund, 1 year? Some have only been around 1 year, some have been around 3 years, some have been around 5 years. Is that what it is? Does it correspond
Yeah.
to the peers category?
It might, I don't
There's
know.
5 above.
Yeah, I see that. I can
Another 6
check
above.
that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, yeah. We check.
Might be the 5-year alpha and the sharp.
I'll check.
Okay.
So it is right now, we will keep that on watch. Okay, Invesco Small Cap Growth, score 67. Franklin Utilities 56, Hartford Healthcare 100. American Century Real Estate on watch. Now, last quarter on the 3-year it was 65, it declined to 67. On 5-year it was 62, it declined to 64. But other than that, very poor alpha score, very poor ranking for its Sharpe ratio, expense ratio, and outperformance, the performance to the index of 3 and 5, hence a score of 11. So let's look at a fund search. Folks, I want to tell you that, and I wish Julie Hiddle was here to hear this, because she's developed a growing kind of angst for Mass Mutual, and this is just another example of how cumbersome it seems to be growing, and how difficult it is to work with this old Hartford platform. And keep in mind that when I do a fund search, I have a process from in my office, and I cross-reference it with funds that Morgan Stanley approves to be a co-fiduciary on, and I deal with the record keepers, talk about share classes, and I usually start with about 5 or 6 options, because by the time I give those funds to the record keeper to start looking at share classes that they can use, it's not uncommon for maybe 2 funds to simply not be available on their end. And then at the end of the day, I want to come back with, let's say, 3 funds or so to show you, to then select, where all three of them would be suitable replacements to select one. And we also, this same fund is on watch, and I also have a fund search for the same exact American Century Real Estate Fund for Nationwide, and the Nationwide fund search went beautifully, and I have 3 or 4 to show you. So I reach out to Mass Mutual, start with my 5 or 6 funds, big run around. These funds aren't available, we can't even build them, and after 2 go-arounds, I was left with 1 fund. And the good news, the 1 fund that is in this report is a qualifying fund better than what you have. So that's, and that.
What happens if it wasn't?
You don't know. Then it becomes a real problem. But, so if you go to page 6, so we're going to look at the Investo Fund compared to the American Century Real Estate Fund. You go to page 8, okay, there's our IPS criteria. Page 9, there's the scorecard detail. There, 3 and 5 year, 34 and 25, 27th percentile in 1 year. Very strong alpha in the 27th percentile, strong Sharpe ratio, manager tenure, significant space ratio, fine. It does underperform the index for 3 and 5, but it does get a score of 78. If you go to page 10, here you've shown interest in star ratings, which is fine. Invesco over a 3-year period is 3, but over a 10-year and overall it's a 4, so pretty solid. And if you go to page 11, Invesco, Morgan Stanley's analysis thinks very highly of Invesco because it's on our focus list. And then if you go to page 12, you can see that it's got good returns and the rankings. Good Sharpe ratio, lower standard deviation than the incumbent. And then last on page, well not last, but on page 14, you can see how it did in 08 for the category. The real estate category is down 38.73%, it was down 36. So, that would speak to the standard deviation. It's pretty good. And then last on page 16, from an expense perspective, we're getting a better fund, better performance at significantly less cost, 89 basis points compared to 139.
Do you have recommendations? Who do you recommend?
Their performance isn't all that much better, really. It's odd. If you look on it on an annual basis.
What page?
It's page 13 of the PDF. Just the annual returns, calendar year performance annual returns. I mean, it's slightly better, but it's not.
Well, you have to understand, John, that's a good observation, but sometimes in a category,
Yeah, it's all
a few
clustered.
basis points can determine, what.
It just seems like a few basis points made a big difference in the ranking
It can happen.
because they're all clustered.
But the current period is the big difference.
Yeah.
Current period returns.
Yep.
The expense ratio being that much lower.
Big in the help as well, yeah.
But, if you look at the annualized returns, instead of just the calendar returns, on page 12, you can see a more polarizing improvement.
Yes. Particularly the 1 year.
For the 1 year, yeah.
But beyond that, it's
Well, for 10 years, significant. For 5 years, it's fairly significant. So, yes, I recommend Invesco.
yeah.
But this is what you were saying, you didn't want to agree.
Couldn't. I was at the mercy of Hartford, Mass Mutual.
Okay, is there a motion regarding replacement, possible replacement of American Century Real Estate with Invesco or Mass Mutual?
I'll make a motion to replace.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have replaced American Century Real Estate with Invesco Real Estate.
Excellent.
So of all the real estate funds, they claim they could only offer that one fund? Essentially?
Well,
That met the
you know,
criteria?
There are more. There might be more real estate funds in the entire universe, but I think there's value in trying to cross-reference that with the list that Morgan Stanley approves and blesses. So
Well, that's what I mean.
something happens. and
With the
you
real
don't
estate
get
funds that
sued.
you approve, you got from Mass Mutual back only one fund.
That's right. And I had a very similar situation recently with another fund search with Mass Mutual.
We might want to document that for Julie.
We're jumping back to the other book now?
Well, no, we're going to finish page 37 in Mass Mutual. Our international stocks, MFS value, doing extremely well. Great rankings, 89, and then Hartford Global, 100. Okay, now if you go to page 38, there's our index funds. Stage 3, 100, State Street mid cap, 100, and then the small cap, 86. So, in aggregate, I think we're in pretty good shape for performance ranking. Now, please go back to page 30 because there's a new enhancement in the software that I'm including now, and I believe it's of value. And here's where we can now look at trends of the watch list trends. And this goes back to Q5. This doesn't go back beyond Q5 and 15 because that's when we switched over to this new reporting software. But you can just see for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 quarters, if we want to ever look back and see, what fund has a red square on it. You can see the historical watch list and trends. Yeah.
Like PIMCO real return, we had them watch list for 2 quarters, and we took it off in 1 quarter, we were back and watch list for 2 quarters.
It can happen.
Okay.
So with that, that concludes Mass Mutual. Next is CMA.
Since Loretta came, do you want to jump to items on it?
Sure, love to. You.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
good to go with that.
I'll probably close it at 15 through 20. I have a 4 or 5 medals at the moment.
Okay. We'll jump ahead to item number 5.
Okay.
You know not to make an appointment in November 29th.
This was made months ago, I know, and I tried to change it. And they
Maybe
said,
that's
you
what
want another 3
Yes,
months for the
please.
appointment?
Thank you, Freddie. Appreciate it.
Yes, Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it was hard to find time for everybody during the holidays.
I'll be Just make sure John.
Hey, don't plan a vacation for November 29th.
It's too late. Oh, we got the plane?
That's a given these days.
If I was doing volunteer work, I probably would. Got a deal.
So,
Got a deal, right? Bring your own show.
the point of this presentation here, and I believe it is my duty to, networking with my peers, talking to industry insiders that are record keepers, fund companies. It's my job to continue to bring what I believe are industry trends and best practices, and I try to do that to all my clients, and it's up to you to, consider them and see if it makes sense to what extent, and it's a good discussion. And in terms of consolidating record keepers, the latest update is the state of data consolidated 2 record keepers into one. I have a new client. It's a very large one. It's Oakland County, Michigan. We have another Morgan Stanley firm, $750 million. And we just went through an RFP, and I was back in Michigan Monday of last week. And this process started months ago. We issued an RFP, got 10 responses, and the 2 incumbents were ICMA and Fidelity. And there's very good responses, and it's just a way to consolidate, in this particular case with Prudential. But and the reason to do it is for cost savings, administrative efficiencies, and sort of the beginning of this conversation of this topic is last quarter, John, when I came in here, showed how the firefighters. It's unfortunate that the West Massac Core Plus Bond Fund was in the nationwide lineup at a certain expense ratio, and the performance was inferior to the same fund that was in the ICMA lineup, just because ICMA has more assets than they can get in order to use. And then I started doing a cost comparison of the underlying record-keeping fees, and this comes from the benchmark reports, the most recent ones that we reviewed, where Mass Mutual has a 5-1 of this year, has 153 million, ICMA 51 million, Nationwide 35 million, so it's a total of 240 million. Mass Mutual has a record-keeping cost of 15 basis points, ICMA 23, Nationwide 30. So there you can see as you go from higher to lower balances, the costs go up. And if you blend that together on a weighted basis, the underlying record-keeping cost of the city is 19 basis points. So what I did is I went out and got a blind quote from a record keeper. This is done all the time, just a RFI, request for information, if you will. And they bid 8 basis points, where it would be a cost savings of $268,000 in record-keeping fees that participants could benefit from. And that's not one time, that's every year. But the challenge I have with that, there's more complicated than that, because 75 million that's baked into this 240 is with Mass Mutual earning 4%, and that's $3 million of earnings for the plan every year. So you can't just forego $3 million to save $268,000. But as I continue this discussion, I want to take you through a case study that I did. Is when you look at a new way to generate plan fees. This is where the industry trend comes to the best practices. I believe right now that what we're doing now to generate the required revenue is outdated and antiquated. And the revenue is dependent upon the funds sharing revenue. And if you remember the benchmark reports, you have the lineup of the funds, the asset balances, expense ratio, what basis point percentage, whether it's 10, 25, 35, 50, is reimbursed to the record keeper that, so they can be profitable. And, again, so a participant in one fund might only be, generating 10 basis points. If they're in an index fund or the stable value fund, it's not generating anything, so those people are free riding. That in itself would be a fiduciary concern. So here's an exercise that I went through with another client. I removed their name, but I thought this would be the best way to illustrate the possibilities. So looking at the blue, it's not on there, I'm sorry. Yeah. So if you look at the first blue presentation, you have the fund lineup on the left, the current fund lineup, you've got the balances, you've got the expense ratio starting at 85 basis points. Everybody with me there? And if you blend that together, the up top, the weighted cost is 75 basis points, okay? And that, so the total plan fees in this plan is $1,479,000. And so that is paying the three entities that need to be paid. It's paying the investment managers, it's paying the record keeper, it's paying Morgan Stanley, okay? In this particular case, this one client generates more because they use about an extra $60,000 in plan audits and other administrative fees. So up at the top, you've got, in this case, before I go to that, if you look at the expense ratio, the weighted expense of 75 basis points, and you see the estimated revenue, just to the right where it starts at 35 basis points, the weighted fund revenue, the revenue sharing is 30 basis points. So if you take the 75 minus the 30 that it shares revenue, it has a net expense of 45. But the problem is the participants aren't getting the benefit of that 30 basis points credited back to them. It's going into a revenue account that pays the record keeper at Morgan Stanley. So they're realizing 75 basis points. In this particular fund, the record keepers up top is earning 14 basis points. There was 10 basis points for the expense budget account that was going to Morgan Stanley. I've since lowered my fee in this particular plan to $101,000. And if you go to the next page, what we did is in this new world and abandoning the outdated model that's used to generate the revenue, you see on the left where we are using now some collective investment trusts. It's a different investment vehicle, but it's essentially the same portfolio for the target date funds. That's why those don't have symbols, because they're not registered vehicles. You've got the balances, and we've been able to lower the expense ratio. And so now the weighted expense is 44 basis points. Now some funds, you see that there's 4 funds that do share some revenue. You see that? And so that comes out to $152,000. So the weighted expense is 44 basis points that the fund manager is going to keep. Excuse me. The weighted expense, the 8 basis points, $152,000 will get credited back every quarter to the participants that were in those funds that generated that revenue, so they're made whole. And now the net weighted investment expense is 36 basis points. So the 3 entities need to be compensated. In this scenario, the fund manager has been compensated. Now, if you go to the next page, yes.
Can you explain to me again why or how is the expense ratio lower?
Because, yeah, well, I'm going to get to that, but the expense ratio is lower, Edward, because we can use lower cost investments, because we don't need higher cost investments that, because of the higher cost, they came with revenue sharing that goes to the record keeper, okay? Or in some cases, we get credit to participants. But in what we're doing now, we have the right share classes because they have to be of a certain expense to come with that revenue sharing that we're dependent upon to pay the record keeper. Okay? So on the second page, because you can go to, in most cases, what's called zero revenue share classes, you see, that have expense ratios with no credit. What little credit is on almost 200 million, 150,000 will be credited back to participants. Now to the third page, now what we're doing is we're taking that 200 million in an asset-based approach. The record keeper is still making 14 basis points. There is fee compression even for consultants. And so to help this cause, I've offered to lower Morgan Stanley's revenue in this plan to 101,000 down to 85,000. So you divide that 85,000 into 200 million, that's 4.27 basis points. And then this plan uses another 62,000, which is 3.1 basis points. So all in, the required revenue is 21.4 basis points. And so you take a $500 account balance, and that participant sees a 27-cent fee on their statement every month. $10,000 account, they see $5.36, debit to their statement every month, and 100,000. It's proportionate. Now you can also take that same cost and put it in terms of a per head fee, where the record keeper, it's not linear math, the record keeper is going to charge more in this case. 45, Morgan Stanley, the 85 divided by the number of participants, 9,741 is 875, then admin cost of 62,000 is 639. So that comes to $60 per head, which is, if you do the math, it's more like 29 basis points. Now in Oakland County's situation, they elected to go, using this new approach, they elected to go to a per head asset, per head charge, flat dollar. So in that case, everybody would be paying $60 or $15 a quarter on their statement. Doesn't matter if you have
Somebody's got a $500 account.
Well, that's the trade-off.
It's a pretty high ratio.
It is, but this is a government plan where they have kind of like yours, where pretty high account balances. It's just philosophical. Personally, I think an asset-based fee is more equitable. But now, when you finally turn the page, and here's the punchline of this, where the current investment costs are the 75 basis points generating $1,494,000, and in that is compensating the record keeper, the investment manager, and Morgan Stanley. Under the new proposed method, we've got the net investment cost of the 36 basis points, which is $705,000, and then you take that 21 basis point asset-based fee, which is $415,000. The total plan cost just went from 75 basis points to 57 basis points, and this plan is going to save $373,000 a year. That's 25%. And so that's on 200 million. So if you aggregate, the city here, you're more like 250. So you start to see, what the possibilities are. And there's more to my presentation. Before I continue, are there any questions or comments? I look at this stuff all the time. It's understandable. There might be parts of it that may not be readily understandable.
In order to achieve something like this, like you're saying, you would go out to the market to ask all plan providers in the universe want to propose the best sort of package for us, and then we'd like to get something local, what other cities are getting, and that would save us much money, but we'd end up with one record.
Well, apartment area, in a perfect world, you would have one record keeper. But here's the thing, we know that to get the real bang for the buck, one record keeper, using this approach of an asset-based fee, zero revenue versus the revenue sharing method, asset-based fee, is that from a record-keeping blind quote, you see that you could potentially save $236,000. And then for this illustration at $200 million, using this new approach, you save another $373,000. You can see when you add them up the possibilities, but there are complications because of the Hartford situation. Let me continue.
Hartford situation, you're
Mass Mutual.
general account?
Yes, general account. Now, I've talked to Mass Mutual about it, and they have if they were going to go out and win new business, their new business crediting rate, if you use their general account, is a 210. And for existing clients that might want to convert, that are getting 4%, that might want to convert to the Mass Mutual platform, the Reflex platform, the Mobile Robust platform, there's a step down rate for the first year. It's like a 3.9%, that's 3.8, 3.7, it goes down. The lowest group goes 1%. I mean, not to say it ever would, but every general account has a stated floor rate. So I would have to work through the numbers to see,
We'll all be gone by then.
Huh? Well, it won't matter. But I want to bring forth a case study because I don't mean to get too convoluted in this, but it's an interesting story that's come full circle. That when we initially tried to consolidate record keepers, back in 2011, and it didn't work because the city council, didn't allow it, and you circle back and you all of us as human nature, you ask yourself, what could we have done differently, or what could we have done better? And the answer is that we could have done better communication, because you had union groups, the Julies of the world, Rusty, your predecessor, understandably, because they thought what management was doing in this was kind of an underground, kind of a covert operation, and there was a lack of awareness, and that was a mistake looking back. So now I start working with the city of Henderson. They have about a total of about 150 million with 3 record keepers, inefficient. Talked to their committee, formed a committee, started looking at the funds, started having these conversations, told them that they should consolidate, and they have 1 record keeper that has a credit rating of 3.1%. So not, it's not as big of an exception in that part of it. Make a presentation to senior management, CFO, who's not on the committee, but city manager, city attorney, and they start to understand. Next thing you know, Henderson is doing an RFP to consolidate. In fact, we issued it, and the responses are due tomorrow. And so, essentially, I'm going to use the same process that I just did, 2 weeks ago for Oakland County. We're going to get them to point B where they need to be. Now, Henderson has agreed to share this. I would never share this without their authorization, but what they did is that I work with them, talking points. How are we going to communicate this? How are we going to learn what didn't work in Las Vegas? And so, collaborate with the committee, and they had, posted out on the intranet site of what's happening, so participants weren't, in the dark and sort of blindsided by this. What? I can't have my, the one fund that I like, or work with the same, education rep, and what's going on. And they had 2 well-attended employee meetings in the City Hall chambers, of which I was there. Some committee members were there to ask questions. It wasn't that there weren't questions. There were concerns. They were voiced. We answered them, and it's all worked out very well. And so it's all systems go. And you can see, the background. The benchmark studies, too many funds. So you could adopt this and put something like this in the city's regard, and you see it references the committee members, and the committee members spoke at those meetings to say, listen, we're in this together. I have a retirement account just like you folks, and I'd rather pay less fees than, if I could. And so it put everybody kind of on the same ground. Page that brings us to the why city has a fiduciary responsibility to review the fund life and fee structure for the retirement plan. The committee has taken its responsibilities and is committed to ensure you get the most bang for your buck. Consolidating record keepers will allow better administrative efficiencies, assist in lowering fees that will allow your retirement assets to grow faster. And then on this page, you put it in terms of dollars that they can understand. So record keeper costs in their case was a weighted 33 basis points between the 3 I had gotten a blind quote at 12 basis points, okay? And so we estimated that total cost would be 19, and in that 19 would include Morgan Stanley's fee. So going from 33 to 19 at a hypothetical $80,000 account could save $112 a year, 42% for every year. And then the next page, better fund management, administrative efficiencies, best online participant services, easier processing of loans and withdrawals. From a staff perspective, I'm sure that might be a relief if you could have, one provider that you could, or one of the incumbents, whatever, but build from the ground up, sign a new service agreement where outsource and have the record keeper do everything. Can you imagine what an amazing communication education program you could put forth with one record keeper instead of 3 education specialists out there with potentially different messages and communicating different things?
That's funny. Somebody in my office scheduled an appointment with one of the record keepers. I was Mass Mutual ICMA, and then they said, "Oh no, you're with the other one." They didn't even know who they were with.
There you go. And then here it talks about the timeline. So everybody knew what to expect, and we put this timeline together and we're on track.
This presentation was for council meetings?
No, it was for the city employees. It was held in the council chambers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there much objection?
No, there were questions, concerns. We answered them, and put the concerns to bed, and they were accepted. And then what do I need to do? Nothing. It's going to be done automatically. So now I'll tell you, in a perfect world, you could consolidate to one record keeper. I have to run through the numbers and find some kind of equilibrium, break point or trade-off between. It's not that you're abandoning 4% for zero. You're abandoning 4% for something lower than 4%, and weigh that over time against cost savings, not just huge 230,000.
What do we currently get with ICMA and
Get what?
at 4% with
Nationwide is 3.1%. That's a general account, just like Mass. And ICMA has it's a different animal. It's not a general account. It's a collective trust investment. And it's more in line of about 1.8%, approximately.
The biggest fund we have is the Mass Mutual General Fund.
Right.
It's right
Yes.
about half of the Mass Mutual.
That's right. But here's the real complication. So in a perfect world, you could consolidate to one record keeper, substantially lower your record keeping costs, but then apply this new revenue method to lower the other kind costs, the investment costs, and now realize savings, record keeper costs, and investment expense, because you're not relying on more expensive funds. And by the way, going from 3 record keepers to 1, I would most certainly lower Morgan Stanley's fees. Okay. So I have to come up with something, and it's a project we continue for next quarter, and ultimately, depending on your appetite to move forward, I wish Julie was here, it really goes into a 2018, but the problems, but short of that, let's suppose we do the numbers, and you just can't get past some sort of a lower crediting rate for the people in Mass Mutual as a trade-off between saving and the other part, and you then have to default to executing this new strategy with the three record keepers we have. Okay? Everyone understand that? That would be, still be positive, but not as positive as total consolidation. There would be no problem doing it with ICMA, no problem doing it with Nationwide. The problem is with Mass Mutual, number one, with the current general account, they do not allow then applying an asset-based fee to the general account. So that blows that up. Also, on the current Mass Mutual platform, the old Hartford platform, you heard me reference collective investment trusts. It's a different vehicle than a registered mutual fund, and there are potentially some significant cost savings using CITs. They have large minimums. You have to work through it. Not available on Mass Mutual, on the old Hartford. So again, every which way you look, just handicapped with Mass Mutual. I do have something I can quantify that may be eye-opening, is that in our target date funds, Mass Mutual has 2.1 million, ICM has 23 million, Nationwide has 7.8 million. Total, we have $33 million in target date funds. Well, T. Rowe Price, who is represented and kind of we saw the performance, right? If you consolidate into one record keeper, well, T. Rowe Price at a minimum of 20 million offers a CIT with an expense ratio of 46 basis points. Currently, in ICMA, you got target date funds with an average of about a cost of about 85 basis points. That's a 39 basis point saving of 33 million, it's 114,000 a year. You're saving investment costs if you could combine this.
To me, the biggest hurdle seems to be the general account.
Absolutely.
So if you're saying you would support that, that's likely to be 1% range for those people that are using a general account type thing.
Mhm.
We have $78 million in general accounts today, so let's say we lose a whole percent. 1% of 78 million is 780,000.
Yep. So basically, weighing that, assuming a plus or minus a new crediting rate might be, blended over time of about 3%, kind of using a general assumption.
But my understanding is there's risk today. If we do nothing, what Mass Mutual had told me a year ago when I was in another city was the Hartford people who I was talking to got subsumed by Mass Mutual were saying that the Mass Mutual higher up was going to eventually phase out.
Where they were lower the credit and put a freeze in, and
Even though the contract were evergreen, they were going to say no longer do this.
it can happen because City Henderson, City Henderson has substantial assets. One of the record keepers is Voya with a 3% credit rate, and Voya, and it's evergreen, but Voya instituted a soft freeze on the 3%. So everybody that had money in the general account earning 3% would still earn that 3%, but any new money going into the general account would then earn 175 going forward. And so, it could happen.
Part of the message probably needs to be too, though, that this $78 million that's been sitting in the general account for the last year, say, they earned 4%. Everybody else bought in the general account, they probably on average earn 10%.
Right. Yeah, and you're right. I mean, I can't totally turn my nose and dismiss, retirees that, just simply don't have the stomach for equities and get the 4%, and you can't ignore them. But they're probably the smaller, percentage of people.
Can we do an analysis of what percentage of the general fund is retirees versus active employees? Is that something that can be generated?
Yeah, it seems to me, Julie asked, and I came with some numbers, but, let me,
Because logically, I think, as people get closer to retirement, they want to.
Yeah, if I was retired, I
It's
would
certainly safe, or yes, it's safe because the Constitution is guaranteeing a return based on buying a bunch of junk stuff and so there's a big bond.
Sure.
We see the transfer of those people that are, excuse me, coming in to retire, that are in mass mutual and migrate over into the general fund.
yeah, from other record keepers as well? Yeah.
They're the ones who really cause the sting. Yeah, they're the ones who are, if they lose 4%, even if they
Right.
lose a 10%,
But I'll tell you, and then going back just to, how the consolidation effort failed the first time, and now fast forward, and I think we're in a different time and place because number one, we've done a lot of good, you won that national award. I was an unknown element at that time. I'll occasionally, run into council members, particularly, Stavros Anthony and Bob Kaufman, and, they're very warm. They acknowledge, what we've done, and I just think, and now using Henderson as a case study, I'll come, as Henderson, we're learning, we can benefit from learning, what didn't go right in Vegas. Now Henderson's doing it the right way, full circle down, we can learn kind of, how Henderson did it. And so now I think we're in a different time and place where city council, they're more informed. We know how to do it the right way now. I think it would have, from that perspective, and all the committee members who were put on the committee that weren't close enough to the issues or the data to understand, what was going on. I think that's changed largely
So
now.
is the city of Henderson going to lose, I don't know if they've done the award, but
Well,
is
the
the city,
RP, they're due tomorrow, the response to do.
just the responsibility?
Yeah.
So it's potentially that nationwide or
And incumbent will win.
an incumbent to win, but also that
All the incumbents.
all the incumbents, including where their buyer union wants to, they're just using nationwide.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. Now I know that, I don't, I'm, you guys are gonna tell me better, but in Henderson's case, John, your counterpart, Bill Rotroff, who, his cohort is Dan Petkowski.
Okay.
Yeah. Who's very close with Rusty, the old firefighter and committee representative, that Bill Rotroff, was so intrigued with this concept of saving costs, and, why should his, brotherhood of firefighters have to, have lower fee, higher fees and lower performing investments when, if you put it all together, everybody could benefit from, having lower costs and other retirement assets grow. That Bill went to his people and did an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding. And then they had some kind of a vote, which went great, and then that was, all systems go.
What they did was they drafted an MOU to call out and say that it doesn't have to be nationwide, and it could just be a competent deferred compensation fund, similar to our language that we have in our contract.
Yeah. So is that something that could be achieved here, or is that?
We don't need to.
Oh, you don't need to?
We don't have nationwide named within
Okay.
both of the contracts as the sole provider.
Within our contract, it says that the IAFF members will be offered the IAFF Financial Corporation's retirement plan.
Oh, I see.
So whoever that is, which is currently nationwide, that has to be available to our members.
It
That's
has.
what our contract says.
Okay.
So nationwide.
Promise, that's what it says. Article 35.
Well, after hearing this,
It's Article 35, I've got it right here if you want to see it.
Yeah, let's take a look.
but after hearing this, John. how do
No,
you
I know,
feel about
I'm
it?
just saying, in our contract, that's what our contract is.
Okay. You want to see that next?
Yeah, I've got a, I do have a, something.
Screenshot it.
It could be offered.
What's that?
It could be offered. If the fees, I mean, if the participation goes down,
That's right.
and then they can choose if they're getting less kickbacks to the union.
Well, that's another thing, yes.
If the membership wanted to release that, but that'd be a subject of bargaining, so.
But let me ask this to Freddie then. So it sounds like IAFF as a national organization has selected Nationwide as their preferred comp plan. Why aren't we getting a special nationwide package where they combine all the IAFF buying power into one plan and getting a great deal on the Nationwide?
That's a good question. I can't answer it. Talk about every firefighting constituent in every city, in every county, and in every state in the country.
I think they'd have a pretty good buying power.
Yes, they would. Yeah. So anyway, I guess if that's something that can't be unwound, then you take your
It's not something that we allow
easily.
this committee.
Yeah, right. But in that case, then you take, 35 million out of the 240, and now we can still make a compelling argument, but we lose 40 million of the scalability.
And I believe our RFP was only to try to consolidate
Two,
the two.
yeah,
Our original RFP, it was not to do.
that's right, good point, thank you.
So I guess I'm confused, so North Las Vegas doesn't have the same problem with IAFF as we do? Or Henderson, I'm sorry, Henderson.
We don't have.
Their contract's different?
Apparently.
I don't know if it's a problem, but they might not have the same.
It's a problem.
Yeah,
Contract
that was a
language
bad
that
word,
we do.
sorry, bad word, just a
Issue.
bad word.
Yeah, they may
Issue.
not have had the same issue to deal with. that
Yeah,
we-
okay, yeah, sorry.
That's something that we probably already
So their contract's
negotiated.
The city,
Signed up
and
for,
the- yeah, the-
negotiated
into the contract,
It's
okay, so their
negotiated,
contract.
so it would
into
have to be
Article
negotiated
35,
out.
right.
Well, John,
Oh,
as a
it's
representative,
similar.
is that, and again, I'm naive, so, I don't know the answer, but hearing what you've heard today and seeing the possibilities, and when, Henderson, your cousin in the southeast part of the valley, found a way to move forward with this, would that compel you to try to, shake things up a bit, or?
It wouldn't compel me to shake things. I could bring it to our negotiations committee, and I would assume the city would take it to the city manager's office and see what they want. If they
would
want to
probably
work
want a
something out.
presentation or
Yeah,
some more
work something
information.
out, but that'd be something we'd have to determine as
Yeah.
a local and
Yeah.
as a management.
My thought is that, like you said, it took months before they even decided to go ahead and do an RFP. If we think this is a path that we need to go, maybe we need to include it with all of the bargaining units. Start having these conversations to determine if a year from now we want to do it.
I would love to do it, because in doing so, Ed, we would be doing things the right way that we didn't do the first time, including them.
And at the very least, what might happen out of it is we get more employees saying, oh, I need to put more money into the fund. And so maybe we bump this number up from 240 to 300 just because people become more aware of what they can do at the very least.
Yeah.
Because right now we invite them to come to council chambers and they may not show up to get the education.
Well, anyway, I just want to make you aware of the trends that other cities are consolidating into one record keeper. I believe I have a template for success in terms of, because I just went through it with Oakland County, I'm going through it with Henderson. I have an RFP document that is very comprehensive that we use for Oakland County, purchasing manager Henderson, complimented that it was, really good, very comprehensive. So I've got the RFP template. I now have to take the spreadsheet and sort of, ease the cumbersome element for committee members. If 10 proposals come in, does everybody here really have time to go through 10 proposals of 100 pages and distinguish? Maybe not. And, that RFP, if there's 100 questions, the reality is 85% of them were kind of, blah, blah answers like, company background, well, Mass Mutual, Prudential, Lincoln, these are all, nobody's going to get disqualified because they all have, good company background. And you get to 15% of the responses that are differentiators like cost and, who the relationship managers and their case
Depending on
flow.
the RFP, you said, one of the things that we also need to do is just make sure that they put it in the right place so they can be disqualified. We
Yeah.
want their submittal to be a certain way we can. So
Okay.
that's it.
But the point I want to make is I can, highlight, the differentiators and kind of, boil this down and, it worked well for Oakland County and that's, what we're going to do for Henderson. Make the project something you can, execute on and not some just difficult process. So,
I take it you want this item on here as an informational item?
yeah, just an informational item. I hope that this would be eye-opening, and it's not just conjecture or thought.
We've been thinking about it for 2 years.
Yeah. And if Julie was here, what do you think her position would be?
She doesn't know either.
I've never even met.
No, I know, but more,
Julie would probably be more towards moving towards a single record keeper. That seems to be the impression I got from the last
yeah.
two meetings that she was at.
Over the last few, she's changed
Sure.
considerably.
I agree.
She was.
Especially when Mass Mutual came in and had their
Yeah.
presentation and made it sound like, we're holding you by the hand, you gotta do what we ask.
And I view her as a very influential member in the face of her constituents, who she represents. Yeah, so.
She's not only a client.
Right. So again, all these things validate the notion that it's a different time and place to take a crack at this, but so just to keep moving the ball down the field ever so slowly.
Now, when Rusty was spending a lot of time up north and things like that, you had a lot of private conversations with him to get his take on some things. Is this something that?
Well, the private conversations were mostly more about when we had to do fund surge and.
I understand, but
yeah.
is this something that you could have a discussion with her on?
Absolutely.
Just-
Yeah, I would, in fact, it's so funny. I sent her an email just before the meeting started, when I heard she wasn't going to be there, saying, Julie, I wish you were here because I have an agenda item that I think you'd really like to hear. Be happy to meet with you at a later date. I'd be happy to present this thing to her, over coffee.
You can tell us what she thinks.
Okay.
Can you check with the IAFF and see what their term of their corporate agreement is with Nationwide?
I could.
Do they have any plans to do their own RFP at some point?
I could probably try to do that.
Was that a plan, when you say IAFF corporate, is it a plan that's offered to people that work out of the IAFF corporate headquarters somewhere?
Does the IAFF itself use, I imagine they do, but I don't know what the international does for their employees.
Well, it must be Nationwide, it's part of that language.
Well, I would guess it's nationwide, yeah, because that's.
Either that or a violation of the MOU right now.
Now, are you talking about the international in, like, the parent organization?
That's what I said, IAFF corporate. Corporate, so it's a national office of somewhere.
I would imagine IAFF gets a percentage of assets rebated to the from Nationwide.
No, IAFF Financial Corporation is the name of the bank.
Or you know, bank.
the name of the company that they run their mortgages and? Yeah. That's how they watch things.
You want starts or not starts?
Freddie, is that the arrangement though? I mean, the International Union would have an agreement with Nationwide that Nationwide somehow gets, I mean, they have to pay them something.
They would
have
pay
this-
back to the IFF.
Yeah.
Is how it works.
And I guess they would, here, it's been collectively bargained into the agreement, but in Henderson it never was, so that gave the city the option of not including it.
Right.
Do you think Nationwide might be giving some kickback to IAF because you guys are participating?
They have to be.
I imagine that they are, as a
For like you paying
sponsor
more
of the
dues.
IFF Financial Corporation, I would imagine that they pay a sponsorship fee.
That's like you paying more dues because you're paying more fees, and then they're
Yes.
taking some of the fees and paying it back to your court. Okay. Should we go back to the agenda?
So just to close this agenda item, John can give clarity on the IAFF. I can continue to, work on, assumptions and trade-offs between 4% crediting rate and 3 or 275, and, weigh it across potential cost savings and record keeping and investment expense, and just, keep coming and just trying to keep.
Freddie, I have a 457 in California when I left working for the state there, very small amount. And I know they charge like a very small, it's like $2.50 per quarter, I think, fee. And then I guess the rest of the asset, or the rest of the fees are baked into the return. Is that something plans would do, is charge such a small, I mean, it's essentially
Plan maintenance.
$10 a year.
Yeah, so, plan fees can be generated really one of three ways. They can be baked into the investments, higher expense ratios, so the participants, largely don't see what they're paying.
Yeah.
Okay, it's murky. There can be an asset-based fee charge. Okay, so if you have lower investment costs, the record keepers and, consultants have to get paid somehow, so you can apply that asset-based fee for the accounts. Or you can charge a per hard dollar fee. So you're at $2.50 a quarter, that's a hard dollar fee. And that would be a very low fee in and of itself, unless it was a $1 trillion plan. So
It's per CalPERS,
yeah,
so it's like a-
okay, but in that case, it was probably a blend of those things of paying
Yeah.
expense ratios.
But it seems
plus
like
the
everybody
record.
should pay something because there's plan administration costs, even if you have a very low balance or a huge balance. There's plan administration costs that are kind of static.
Okay, so that would be a per head fee.
Yeah, it seems
Not
like
an
there should be a
asset-based.
per head fee, not large. I mean, largely should be based on the assets, but there's fixed costs that seem like should be covered by every member of the plan, in my opinion.
Well, and I
Okay.
think that's the biggest problem that we as the committee have in Mass Mutual, right, is that the general fund isn't generating any revenue to Mass Mutual, so the people that are in equities are paying all of the fees.
Well, that's a very interesting point. You can't say it's not generating revenue, because it's a different animal, it's a spread product, okay? So if within the general account, that the money in this retirement plan, 75 million, is lumped in to their general account along with the premium, insurance annuity holders' premiums, massive behemoth, and they're running a portfolio that has no transparency in terms of cost.
Right.
And they essentially want to try to earn 5, and a new crediting rate is 210. So they
Right.
keep that spread. So with City of Las Vegas, it's less profitable because they have to pay you 4. So you don't really know what it's. It is a cash cow for them if they can earn 5 or 6% only pay out 2. It doesn't show as any revenue sharing to them because it's a different investment. It's a whole different animal.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
But it is part of the issue of Mass Mutual, the equity investors are sort of subsidizing the general fund people, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I
And
think Mark wanted, we talked about that as well.
Having a fee on the general fund.
yep.
That's an option too.
You can't wrap a fee. That was one of the
Oh, that's
constraints.
one of their-
One of their constraints. So again, if you can't consolidate, then you try to then get current and apply this new current model or approach to generate the revenue, and can't do it with Mass Mutual because half of it you can't put a fee around it. So you're stuck there. So every which way you turn, you can't move forward. We can still execute this new approach with the other two record keepers, but clearly the biggest bang for the buck is consolidating to one and have the new approach to revenue generation.
But since you're not representing any of these plans, providers, sponsors, or plans, since Mass Mutual bought the book of business, the government book of business from Hartford, do you know if there's been a trend to or from Mass Mutual government retirement plan?
I don't know for sure. I don't know for sure.
Amongst your clientele, that they left Mass Mutual because they had
Vegas is my only client that has a Mass No, I mean, Mass Mutual in itself is there's nothing wrong with the company. The person in charge of the sales of trying to get new plans on the books, very professional. They've got good back office, good. It's just the old antiquated Hartford platform that you're on that comes with 4%. That's where it gets sticky. Now in Oakland County, Mass Mutual didn't make the finals, and the winner was actually just coincidentally. I mean, I can tell it's history now. Is that ICMA had the very large 401A and retirement health savings and part-time non-employment kind of a substitute for somebody that couldn't get Social Security, just another plan. And then Fidelity had the 457 part of it, and Prudential won the consolidation. And one of the elements to that was this particular committee very strong in ICMA's technology, their participants, website, gap analysis tool, the ability to make fund transfers in and out, whatever. It is what it is, but they thought it was like 5 years behind. In this case, let's say Prudential or some of the other presenters.
And I thought Mass Mutual was 10 years behind,
No, ICMAs.
but they also excluded Mass Mutual.
Yeah, not necessarily on that because of that, but and part of these RFPs come in, and one of the questions, give a link, a demo to your participant website and sponsor website, so you go in and get a look and feel. Partly subjective, for sure, but
Personally, I'm involved. I find Mass Mutual to be aggravating, antiquated.
interesting.
Did you happen to see the article, I think it came out yesterday or today, that Norway's sovereign wealth fund was valued at $1 trillion?
Norway?
Yes, government of Norway has the sovereign wealth fund with all their oil revenue, I guess, and I wonder who they use as their record keeper. Maybe you could win for some sales.
Sovereign wealth fund, wow. Who knows? Maybe they don't even use a record keeper. Who knows?
Their Federal Reserve.
So I'll just keep.
Maybe we need to put this on the agenda
Like a running
quarter,
thing.
just so we can come back and touch upon it.
Excellent. That'd be great.
So back on the regular agenda, item 3, ICMA.
Yes. Page 19, please. Fidelity Government Money Market Fund is on watch. All the Vantage Point milestone funds were on watch. Not that they were all failing. Each one was failing the criteria, but there was enough red or non-compliance that we kept all on watch as it grew. So even though there's all those different vintages, they kind of are one fund. So I wouldn't count those as a zillion funds on watch, because the whole set is on watch. Oppenheimer Discovery, small growth is on watch. Go to page 21. There's the list of the funds. Page 22. Now this is really has everything one would need to build a fundamentally sound portfolio. Page 24. On the left, you see there's a 41%. It's a $23 million position is in targeted funds. It's the Vantage Point proprietary targeted funds that I'm going to show a fund search for. Page 25, there's the balances. And on page 26, we're at $55,138,460. Page 30. There's just the new presentation with the historical watch list. And then on to page 34, scorecard detail. So Fidelity Government Money Market Fund is on watch over a 3-year period. It ranks 53rd. It did improve 51st. It did improve from 53rd last quarter to 59 2 quarters ago. Ranks 52nd on the 5-year. Last quarter was 52nd. 2 quarters ago it was 59th. So the trend is marginally positive there. But still, if you factor in the other criteria, it only is at 33. So I believe that should stay on watch. And I should probably do a fund search for replacement. Anybody have any other opinions?
This is another category that you probably very little difference in yield between the worst
True
market fund and the best one.
That's right. Yep.
They're all earning next to nothing.
Right.
So I'm not sure the spread between a great one and this one is going to be that big of a deal.
Yeah. Yeah, if you go to page 46, you can see the returns of Fidelity Government Money Market over the quarter. Earns 10 basis points. The benchmark is the U.S. Treasury 3-month T-bills, 23 basis points, and it ties the money market taxable at 10. Year to date, you can see how this is really kind of underperformed the index pretty significantly.
Money markets typically
I don't know. I don't know.
Can you remember how much money our folks have in this?
None. I don't think it's much. It's
Shouldn't be much.
$51,000.
Whoa.
I'll move everything.
Yeah.
That's November.
more references here?
Yeah, largest salary, not so.
So again, it's on watch. Score of 33 validates it, and
You're suggesting we maybe bring back some options next time?
yeah.
So we keep it on watch unless somebody wants to move it off? Great.
The only interesting thing that I see is that it looks like the last year's over double this percentage in returns.
Oh, you talking about
6%. On page
46? Oh, page 46?
46.
That it went from,
in the 1 year, 0.06 compared to 0.06 to 3.
oh, well, but,
That's the only interesting thing.
Yeah, I think there was actually
Yeah.
a year where it was negative, wasn't
yeah. But that's commensurate with the index and the T-bills as well, so it's all relative.
A lot of entries on here.
I think you've seen different pages or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll keep that fund on watch and I'll do a fund search. Western Asset Core Plus, beautiful, 100. The Vantage Point Inflation Focus, as you mentioned, is on consent watch. Fidelity Puritan, 100, great. And you see that, so now we get down to the Vantage Point milestone target date funds, and they're all on watch. And you see to the left, if you just look at the scores, 43, 33, 56, 78 on the next page. You know, 67, 60, there's more green than red. I mean, there's more good than bad. And now, if you know, the challenge of these, for the most part, certainly on 35, is the only real glaring part is the 3-year rankings. But other than that, you know, most of them are in compliance. So, you know, I don't think they're that bad. I think they're steady, they're adequate. But I do have a fund search to show you some choices that are quite a lot better. But I just think from investment policy guidelines, you know, they're acceptable. And I did have a fund search last quarter, and you know, it's a $23 million decision, and you elected to, you know, table it for the next quarter. So here we are. Would you like to see the fund search?
Bring it on.
Okay. So we're going to look at two presentations.
We have to switch over to the fund search now.
Yeah.
First is this one. Did you get this?
Yeah.
Compass. The compass.
Okay.
Yeah.
Target date, what we call it, target
Or
date,
something,
right?
target date.
Well, we're going to look at the target date in a minute as well. But so the how we settled on, not settled, but identified these three funds: American Funds, T. Rowe Price, and TIAA. Excuse me. If you go to page 2, you see these funds are plotted in the northeast quadrant. And if you go to page 21, what does northeast quadrant mean? And the characteristics is higher equity level at the target date, investment orientation focused on managing longevity risk post-retirement, so with more equity, even in retirement, on the premise to try to, you know, outpace inflation.
This is as compared to its peers, right?
Is compared to, yeah, all the funds that,
Or to other targeted.
other target date funds, yeah. Plan
Yes.
profiles to maximize savings throughout their retirement. Participants have more optimal behavior, discipline, staying in the market, seeks to maximize upside potential returns. So the origin of these characteristics goes back to the target date fund analysis that we did before you came on, Gary, and with paper trail, some Department of Labor suggests that the plan sponsors do to have an objective process of how they pick certain target date funds. So we're resigned to having funds that would plot in the Northeast quadrant. So 3 funds that I've identified that fit the profile of American funds, TIAA, and T-RO. We know T-RO. We're familiar with T-RO. Page 3. The different asset class representation. In any given time, this can be good or bad, and sometimes negligible. Page 4. Here's where you see the varying glide path construction. For instance, if you look at TIAA, the purple line has a steeper decline, glide path, and then when it gets to age, 10 years after retirement, it levels out, and you're stuck with about 40% of equity exposure all through retirement. Where you see the T. Rowe Price has more equity exposure up until about 5 years into retirement, and then the glide path is continually managed through retirement. And then American funds, the red, you can see the equity exposure takes quite a decline 10 years from the target date, and then continues to be managed. Now, on page 5, you look at the percentage equity at age 65, where American Funds has 46%, T. Rowe has 55%, TIA has 50%. If you go to page 7, so this report shows all the different vintages from 2010 all the way out to 2060. So the way I usually look at this is pick a vintage. So in this case, the target date 2035.
Page 7.
Yeah. Page 7 there. Can you maximize that?
I did, but it doesn't come home screen.
Oh, that's okay.
everything off.
That's okay. If you just focus, highlight the 2035, you might be able to maximize it more.
Right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So looking at this, you see the return, the calendar years, 16, 15, 14, and 13, American Funds does the best. T. Rowe at 2012, American Funds 2011, T. Rowe in 2010-09. Now in 08, the big equity bust. American Funds was down the least at 35. If you go to page 10, looking at the 2030 vintage, over 1 year period, T. Rowe Price ranks in the 7th percentile. Over a 3 year period, American Funds and T. Rowe rank in the 4th percentile. Over 5 year return, American Funds, they're both great. 5 and 10 year, American Funds actually ranks higher than T. Rowe. And if you go to page 14, the growth of $10,000 starting back to that you see where TIAA and T-Row with a little more volatility. And in this graph, American funds would have grown to the highest dollar amount. Move to page 17. A risk return. So if you look in the middle and you see the 2030 vintage, the American funds has the highest return with the least amount of standard deviation. And then page 18, if you look at the some data here, the 2030 vintage, T. Rowe Price has the best return for 3-year. American funds has the lowest standard deviation, which is good for 3-year. 3-year Sharpe ratio is the best for American funds. Information ratio, we don't really use that, but that's just a more consistent returns. For 5 years, American funds has the best return, lowest standard deviation, and the highest Sharpe ratio. So that is pretty compelling for American funds. Now, if you turn to this, and start at page 8. Plugging these funds into our investment, our IPS criteria, you see both American funds and TIAA get 100. T-Row is very solid at 89. Go to page 8. Excuse me. American funds at T-Row, overall 5 stars by Morningstar. Page 10, Morgan Stanley has direct research, but otherwise screened or approved. All of them are fine. Page 11, you look at the returns, where T. Rowe Price for the quarter up 446, year to date up 1122, 1 year 1746. But over 3, 5, and 10, American funds outperforms it. And over 3 and 5 year rankings, American funds outperform it. And then you see the alpha, highest for American funds. Beta, lowest for American funds, that's good. Highest Sharpe ratio, lowest standard deviation. And last on page 13, just to look on what happened in 08. American funds was down the least at 35.56. So, we have.
Although the vantage point was down even less.
Well, that's true. But so we know we're familiar with T. Rowe Price. American funds deserve some consideration, or do nothing, and keep 23 million Advantage Trust on the on the premise that there could be more significant fund changes coming, but we don't know when. Because ultimately, if you could consolidate these 3 into 1 and get 33 million, that's where you get the CITs and get all that huge cost savings.
I hate to consolidate into T. Rowe Prices. We already have them in Mass Mutual, right?
Yeah, the 3 get homogenized and they're the same.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I would choose ICMA would be because maybe I don't want to participate in T. Rowe Price over here, but maybe American. This is the problem of having 3 funds.
One of them.
Yeah. Because you want to have the best funds in each administrator, and then you have the same palette of funds in each administrator.
That's right.
But maybe that's the
He
point
said
of
they-
it, was for consolidating.
Yeah, well,
You-
yeah, if we
you
chose
know.
T. Rowe Price, then this consolidation path seems to have gotten a
Seems
little
to-
narrower,
yeah.
or a little wider, actually.
It's a charge.
Right. That's
Why?
right.
No, it just drained
Yeah.
out.
Is this one the case? This might be a bigger.
They're very close.
It gives out, it puts out more power than that little one does.
Just a quarter.
Looks a little bit, although American is a little bit better.
Which is surprising because they have a lower stock.
Okay, so we've heard the pitch.
Yeah,
It's
so.
our choice to stay with Vantage Point or go with one of these alternative fund search funds, and you can make a case for American funds at T. Rowe Price as being the top two.
Absolutely.
We already have T. Rowe Price and our national offering. We don't have American funds in Nationwide either.
Right, and we also have T. Rowe Price and Mass Mutual.
So Nationwide also has T. Rowe Price. So if we chose T. Rowe Price here, we'd have T. Rowe Price across all three platforms.
Correct.
Anybody want to make a motion?
I can make, we'll visit American,
American.
American funds?
yes.
So, Ed has made a motion
I'll
to
second that one.
select American funds as the target date fund provider. Renetta has seconded it. Is there any discussion?
Or we put it to the price and we said.
Yeah, I mean, if we do choose T. Rowe Price, it lends the fund consolidation discussion.
Does it tighten it?
Yeah, it tightens the fund consolidation discussion.
Well, you only get the benefit of the real cost savings if, they're all one.
Well, that's what I'm
Correct.
saying. Well, that's what I'm saying, but if we
But
start
if you have the
homogenizing
same-
the funds
yeah.
across the fund administrators, then the natural progression is to go to one administrator.
Okay.
They all have the same mix, they all look alike, so.
Well, that's true. And I understand your thought process, but as much as I am a fan of driving, towards consolidation, I honestly think the fund search, as it is right now, should stand on its own. There's
But
no
then should we
point.
reconsider Mass Mutual's lifestyle?
Well, Mass Mutual is T. Rowe Price, they're
That-
doing just fine.
Okay, but we're choosing American here because they're better than T. Rowe Price, so why don't we replace T. Rowe Price and Mass Mutual with American?
Well, because Mass Mutual, we just reviewed it, and they're ranked number one. There's no reason to.
They were the number one fund available in Mass Mutual?
What
Is that what you're saying? They were the number one fund available in Mass Mutual?
Yeah,
Well, no,
I
they-
understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, at the time we did
I
it,
know what it was,
it's
Still
still
second.
ranked very high.
I guess what I'm saying is if we're selecting the best lifestyle, or what do we call them, lifestyle fund or whatever?
Target date fund.
Target date fund, sorry.
Yeah.
If we select, or we're selecting the best target date fund, it shouldn't be the same in each, in Mass Mutual and
Right.
Is that a
ICMA.
question or a statement?
Half hybrid.
I-
Question statement.
So he's saying, shouldn't they be the same?
He's saying if today American Fund is better than T. Rowe Price, why don't we change Mass Mutual's target date funds also to American Fund? I'm not sure they offer American funds.
Oh, yeah, you could, well,
Well,
Mass Mutual, you don't know, but yeah, no, I'm sure they would offer it, but
So our general practice is not to change unless it's on the watch list.
that's right, because there's nothing wrong with it.
And when we
Yeah.
send out the communication, we're gonna say, oh yeah, yours is doing really, really well, but we think that this one is better.
Yeah,
Might squeeze out 2 more basis points if we switch.
yeah, so this is a point in time calculation, this is a point in time observation.
Sure.
And.
No, I'm
For
definitely
me,
on
we
board
just
with-
need to get rid of,
Also,
Vantage Point.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm on board with switching. I'm just wondering, in the larger picture, how does this impact the consolidation analysis?
I don't think it should, one way or the other, because the consolidation analysis you know, you still get the lower record-keeping costs by consolidating, and then the lower investment costs are gonna come with combining, because if the point in time comes that we consolidate, you know, then as an artist, I have a blank canvas to, you know, with the committee's input, identify every asset class we want represented and build an investment lineup from the ground up, a dream lineup, you know, which a lot of these same funds that are doing excellent could end up, you know, being in that lineup. But, you know, then you look at, you do this process again and look at the whole target date universe again. And at that point in time, you know, it could be any family of funds. So I don't think whether you use American funds with ICMA or T. Rowe Price, it would have no bearing on future consolidation.
And I'm only looking at 2025.
But this is
I need the 2028.
So the 2030 is not in this man.
So did that motion,
We haven't voted.
Well,
We didn't
I
vote.
think we need
No,
to
we
make
didn't
a
make-
motion, or do we need?
No,
to-
I-
No, that was just
If
discussion.
there's a motion on the table, we'd call for the
That was
question.
just
Yeah.
discussion.
yeah.
So let's call for the question. All in favor of going with American funds to replace Vantage Point for our target date fund choice for ICMA, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? That passes unanimously.
I know, that was
We're not
ominous.
used to having clouds here.
That was very ominous. If there's a raven that lands on
Yeah,
this
well,
window.
consider that vote.
Okay, Jennifer, back to page 35, please. In okay, so going down, large value, American Beacon and Invesco, 78. Vantage Point Growth and Income, 78. Page 36, Billy Contra, 78. T. Rowe, 100. Wells Fargo, Mid Cap, 100. BlackRock, 100. The Undiscovered Management Behavioral Fund, 89. Oppenheimer Discovery. Now here, this fund is on watch, and going back to the two criteria on the 3-year, last quarter, 2 quarters ago was 75th. Last quarter it improved to 54th. This quarter it's improved to 34th. So amazing on the 3-year. On the 5-year, 2 quarters ago it was 46. Last quarter it improved to 39, and then this quarter it declined to 51. But it does have other passing aspects, and that's a 56. Any preferences to keep it on watch?
Under our new scoring criteria, what is the break point? Put in- put something in there.
50, so this would
50
be,
goes on automatically, or 50 it's our choice?
well, to have a passing score, you need at least 50.
So,
Yes, passing, because that means it passed on 5 of the 9 criteria. So again, I mean, just on the surface, this would be a passing score, and you know, could be taken off watch. But we just had a fund that's similar, and we chose to keep it on watch.
I think we want to keep it on watch.
Keep it on watch.
May I ask, just in case, you know, we decided, I'm thinking it's possible that it fall below 50.
Okay.
everybody okay with that? Okay, come on.
Fidelity International, 100. New Mean Real Estate, 78. Page 37. Here's our index funds. Vantage Point 500 fund, 100. Small cap, small mid-index, 86. Vantage point overseas, 86. And that was ICMA. Okay. Nationwide.
First time this year.
John, is this yours?
Page 19, please.
Thanks, Frank.
Thanks, John.
See you.
There's our watch list, UBS small cap growth, and as I mentioned before, American Century Real Estate. Page 20. There's a fund lineup. Now, in this particular, with Nationwide, we do have a standalone high yield fund. We inherited it. It's a legacy position, and it's performed pretty well, so it's remained. Not necessarily a bad thing. Next page, 23. Here's just a situation where in the large cap value and growth space, it was Rusty's preference to have more choice. It kind of ran contra to the macro trend, but nothing wrong with that. Just a preference that he had. Page 23. Significant allocation to target date funds. You see 20%. Page 24. There's the fund balances.
They're spread out.
Yep.
A lot of money in money market. Seems odd. Money market
Sure does.
got more than twice than anybody else.
It sure does.
I think the MM stands for money mattress. Stick on your mattress.
In page 25, so we're at about $39 million. So page 20.
Maybe it's that whole money laundering thing. The way to change this here.
29, there's the historical watch list. And very, very clean. You have to go to page 31 to see our two very recent watch list funds, UBS Small Cap Growth and American Century Real Estate. And if you go to page 33, there's a scorecard detail. And again, in the Mass Mutual, T. Rowe Price had scores of 100, but lower assets, so higher expense, score of 89, which is still very, very good.
I'm still hung up on this money market thing. So, on the money market fund here, how could it be in the top 10 in all of those categories and yet yield less than the index? I guess that index, which was again, what the index was like, the TE, the Treasury.
3-month T-bill. Vanguard Federal Money Market. Are you on page 33?
Yeah. It kicks ass compared to its peers, and then it underperforms the market index.
Yeah.
So the index is really unattainable. Seems like one of the best funds in the category can't even hit the index.
Yeah. It's an interesting observation.
It's like nobody will ever get 100 in the money market category.
wonders why there would be $6.6 million in the fund.
Any idea why that is? Firefighters.
We're risk-averse people.
Risk averse.
Apparently.
We're known for anything as being risk-averse.
It's when you run into burning building.
That has not been my experience. Other places I've worked with firefighters, they're out riding their jet skis and snowmobiles, crashing in the night.
You know, you're looking at trying to figure out the score and the comparison of the index, but actually I'm gonna make a note because I'm more concerned about, you know, why there's 6.3 million in such a non-compelling
Low yield
fund. And, you know, just to make sure this is reported correctly, so I am gonna look into that. Yeah. Back to page 33, going down the right side. Excellent scores on almost all these funds. You gotta go to page 35 to see a couple blemishes. And these are the two funds on watch, UBS small cap. On the 3 and 5 year,
Freddie?
Yes.
On page 34, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What happened in Delaware Value under large value?
what happened to it?
It's almost the worst when you return.
On the 1 year return.
Oh, the 1 year? Just had a bad year.
Bad.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, there was nothing wrong with it last,
Well,
I don't remember it being that low last.
We didn't use a 1 year as a criteria. It was just a 3 and 5.
Okay.
And that's rankings.
Right, compared to.
Yeah, now, if you go to, let's take a look at that, John. If you go to page, 46. You can see where on a 1 year, it earned a 271, you know, getting smoked by the index. It was up 466, and the large value category is up 555. So you can see how that would render out.
Didn't the 1 year do the 625?
Pardon me?
Didn't the 1 year the 625?
Oh, the year to date, the 271.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just looking. I'm sorry. Year to date. I beg your pardon. Yeah. Thank you, Gary. I was just looking at it differently. Yeah. So, yeah, 1 year up to 6 1/4 compared to the index is 1553, and the category of 1649. So that not hard to see where that would fall in the 98% line. Yeah. So back page. Huh?
Last 3
3
months.
months have been really bad.
Yep. Yeah, so back to page 34.
So do you want to put it on watch?
You know what? Well,
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
He's got a concern, I'm just.
yeah.
I would, if we could put it on watch, I would do that just to remind me to look at it next
Or we
quarter.
could just monitor it.
Yeah, I can make a note to monitor it.
Well, I'll make a note to monitor, but, you know, just the point being is to try to, you know, adhere to some discipline and objectivity. Let's just,
Thank you.
It was just a pretty drastic reaction for a 1 year.
without question, but, you know, a 1 year time period, and these are all equal weighted, by the way.
Right.
But as an investor, particularly long-term investor in a retirement plan, you know, personally, I would use more discipline than reacting negatively or knee-jerk reaction to a 1 year number. When I'm looking at, you know, 3, 5, and 10, or
Always
3 and
good.
5, yeah, very solid rankings, longer term.
And it will make it so they have now that we're doing it at night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we certainly, you know, monitor it. passing score with a 56, very good rankings for, 3 and 5, good alpha, a good sharp ratio.
That's the one we just talked about in the other group, right?
That was just Oppenheimer Discovery, that was a small cap fund. Yeah, that was a small cap fund. The T. Rowe Price, the blue chip and growth stock, both exceptional, 100% score. Memphis mid cap, 67. Higgs 35. JP Morgan mid cap, 78. American Beacon small cap value, 89. And then we get to UBS small cap growth. It is on watch. Poor score of 33. Last quarter on the 3-year, or 2 quarters ago, it was ranked 54th. It declined to 57 last quarter, and it declined yet again to 68 over a 5-year period. 2 quarters ago, it was 26. Last quarter, it declined to 41 and further declined to 46. Passing score, so there's really, I don't think there's a debate. Keep it on watch.
You don't have any alternatives for that one, so
I don't, but I can certainly come next quarter.
seems like that might be a good idea. In general, small cap is doing okay.
There it is.
It outperformed the 3-year by 2 whole percent. Seems pretty good.
Yeah, and if you go, let's see, look at it in a little more detail. Yeah, IV Energy is fine. American Century Real Estate, poor. So let's look at the fund search. So, if you go to page 4, in big contrast to the difficulties with, compared to Mass Mutual, I've got 4 very strong candidates: Cohen, Steers, Invesco, Manning and Napier, and TIAA. Page 7. There's the scores side by side. Manning and Napier, clear standout at 100, score of 100. Page 8. 5 stars, my Morning Star. 3, 5, and overall. Page 10, all of these funds are approved by Morgan Stanley. On page 15, here's where you really see it, that for the quarter, year to date, 1 year, TIAA does the best. But more significantly, 3 and 5, Manning and Napier do the best, 932 and 1039. The rankings, 1, 3, and 5, Manning and Napier is the best. Manning Napier has the highest alpha, that's good. Has the lowest beta, 95, that's good. Has the highest Sharpe ratio of 84, that's good. And has the lowest standard deviation. So that's, beautiful scorecard there.
And it's the only 5-star fund.
Yep. And then you go to page 15, and you realize that TIA has the least expensive cost at 76, with Manning and Napier at 85, compared to the other 2. And given the tremendous performance, there's a lot of value in paying 85 basis points. So, Manning and Napier is the clear standout.
I've never heard of them. Are they fairly well known?
Yeah, I mean, they're not as, mainstream name as, T. Rowe Prices and, Fidelity's of the world, but, it's a well-known name.
They've been around, this one been around less than 10 years. Didn't know it had been They've got $319 million in assets, compared to like Invesco at $1.7 billion, Boeing is currently at $4.6 billion, so much smaller fund.
Mhm. In some cases, that's good.
As the two main partners stood down with all the money.
That's funds. Okay, the
Or with
board.
all- in this case, with all the real estate.
With all the real estate.
All the
That's
deeds.
funny.
Can't
Load the
find
back of
them.
the truck up. Yeah.
Can't find the deed.
That's right. Hope there's no hard money loans against that property.
So, Freddie has made a case for
Napier.
Napier. Is there a motion? Okay, motion is a second.
I'll second.
Motion is a second to move to Manning and Napier as a real estate fund choice for Nationwide. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Excellent. Page 35, Ivy International, grade score 89. Thornburg Global, grade score 89. Page 36, just the index funds, 86 and 100. All right. So we've gotten through agenda item 2 with the fund searches. The investment policy statement.
I didn't find it either. Do you have any notability either?
Did you go to City Hall or the municipal?
No, I had a meeting with detention.
Okay, there's the meeting materials.
Right there?
Yeah. Let's see, go up here, let's see.
That's it? No?
Okay.
You didn't send it to
You didn't send any.
I apologize. Okay, so basically, it is an updated investment policy statement that is our newest, most current Morgan Stanley's IPS template that identifies, spells out the 9 criteria and 7 criteria for index funds. And basically the intent was to show it to you so you can look at it and, make a motion to formally approve it. Now, it is in the minutes from last meeting that you were tentatively approving it and that future performance would be shown using that criteria, which we've done. And so in lieu of not having it, I apologize for the oversight. I can send it to you, by email tomorrow, which you'll get Monday. And, you can look at it and, it's an IPS template that is a good one. And it governs the review criteria. And then we can vote to approve it via email. I can still accommodate and handle that if that's going to be okay.
What's the timeliness of it? Do you need to get it done?
Well, it's not that I need to get it done. I think it's going
suggesting that we basically vote by email.
Which we've done before.
Yeah, it's done before, not ideal, but it could still be done.